And welcome, everybody. Another Sunday, another respect. Hope you all have had a great week. I know I did. Glad you're all here. And we're back again talking about child trafficking. Now, a few months back, we did a show where we spoke about the upside of it, where we're trying to bring more toward what will happen afterwards. And we spoke about the building of a children's ranch and kind of taking these trafficked children, these abused children, and rehabilitating them and giving them solace and knowing that they're safe, they're protected. And part of that whole program is the fact that when you do it, you need very, very strictly trained people in order to do the job. You can't just have, people that we've trusted for years, DHS and that whole group taking care of the kids and trafficking them themselves and putting them into foster homes and having them raped and sold for prostitution, et cetera, et cetera. These are not good situations. So you have to make sure that you have trusted people and that they are well trained in what they do. And that's the purpose of tonight's show. It's not just plain talking about child trafficking, bringing you up to speed as to what has transpired and where we all are, but it's also about giving you that little bit of hope that we do have a place to go. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our guest tonight, one of whom you know, the other two you don't, but you will, the wonderful Cathy O'Brien. And with us tonight, we have Tina and Baz. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. How are you all doing?
Thank you. We're good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It's my honor. How are you, Kath?
I'm doing great. I had the absolute pure delight and honor of time with Tina and Baz and at Rev 17 in June and working in that effort to make a difference for the children, because we got a very corrupt system. Like you mentioned, they don't need to be in the Department of Human Services or child protection or whatever they want to call it. If the government's involved in it, it's been corrupted, and it's been corrupted a long, long time. And the children cannot wait for the depth of that corruption to be cleaned up. They need people to help them now. And that's what's happening, and I've waited a lifetime for this to happen. I'm so excited these times we're living in, where people aren't just waiting on big government to fix the problems anymore, but they're opening their eyes to see the needs around them and respond with compassion and care. And I'm so excited for what Tina and Baz are doing, because of the magnitude of information that people need to be effective in making a positive difference. Because it's one thing to have the heart and the desire, but it's another to have the skill and the capacity to effectively succeed in doing it. So it's just been a wonderful convergence, and I'm so glad that we're together tonight to discuss it more and to be able to empower more people into action for the children's sake.
Absolutely. This is exactly the kind of push and the positive push that we needed to start to see, because it's a horrible thing, a horrible plague on our society globally that's been going on. And this is something that needs to be stemmed and needs to be fixed. And as General Flynn would say, local action equals national impact. And it's very important that we get our home cleaned up, and then everybody else gets their homes cleaned up too. So Tina and Baz, welcome. First-time comers, I know you guys have had a long and difficult career with this because this isn't anything easy to do, but how about you give us a little bit of background on each of you?
Sure, you want to start?
Go ahead. You're the boss.
I'm the boss today. Well, there we go. It's the first time in a long time. Okay, I'm going to take advantage of it. All right. I'm just joking. I'm a Citadel graduate, former captain in the Marine Corps, former CIA ground branch, paramilitary case officer that jumped ship in '96 to become the founder of the Association for the Recovery of Children. It was born out of the strife of a civil war in Mogadishu, Somalia, when we rescued a couple of girls, and then kind of got me thinking about other children. Up to that point, I really hadn't thought much. I thought about the devastation that children are affected by around the world. I just thought all kids kind of grew up like us. Got back to the United States, and at that time, wrestled with it on my heart. Just the whole idea that things in America may not be what they appear to be. I found out that we had about 250,000 American children missing at that time in 1993. And then when I asked what missing meant from most of the law enforcement entities, both local, state, and federal, they said, well, they're just missing. That's it. And so the idea that children could be put in pornography, organ harvested, child labor and stuff was something that was not in their scope at that time, or didn't appear to be in that scope, or as we've learned, and Cathy alluded to this with the levels of corruption, that it may have very well been in their scope and they were all participating, or someone was participating, and they wanted to keep it on the lowdown. So from 93 to 96, unbeknownst to my employer, the CIA, I took it upon myself to go rescue kids on my holidays. And then by 96, God said, there's something bigger than overthrowing small governments. Go out and do this. And so we formed the Association for the Recovery of Children, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization of former intelligence, military, and law enforcement officers that are dedicated to the recovery of missing, exploited, and sex trafficked American children. And of course, we do this at no cost to the custodial guardians and with no paycheck in our pocket. We do it simply because it's the right thing to do. And that's it. Not because I had a dysfunctional background, not because I was an orphan. In fact, I had a great life. And so I think that we who have great lives owe it to those that don't have great lives to get in the fight and make it better for them. So that's kind of it in a nutshell for me. And Tina, please go ahead.
Oh, yes. And it's such an honor to be on this show. And Cathy, I so appreciated what you shared. I was just blown away by the experience of meeting you. I have shared your story for years and years with survivors of human trafficking, and it's just such an honor to be able to be face to face with you. I'm a missionary kid originally. I was born and raised in South America, in Venezuela. Lived there most of my upbringing, and was very familiar with cartels and criminal enterprise and destruction and crime and corruption and the fall of an entire government that I witnessed growing up. So I came to the U.S. My parents are Americans, and I started engaging in humanitarian efforts here. I did managed to, just as a mom raising my own kids, I managed to save several girls that were being sex trafficked because I recognized the signs of it, having had experience with that before. So I've been doing this professionally about 10 years now, working in rescuing victims of sex trafficking. Primarily, I was working in Southern California. I asked God to send me to the most lost, and I was working in I would say gang-controlled areas in LA, Los Angeles, and San Diego, Ventura County, working on really meeting those trafficked victims where they are and figuring out how to get them out and then how to get into recovery. We decided we needed to force multiply. About 3 years ago, we started doing these equipping courses where we train people from any walk of life on how they can do what we did, which is just be people who say, not on my watch, we're going to do something about it. And we teach you from our experience how to be successful in helping people out of sex trafficking and help them recover.
Now, Cathy, you spent a long time as part of your healing helping others. And you're quite familiar with ARC. What similarities do you see between what you've done and what ARC is doing?
I think the differences make for a powerful convergence of insight and information, because they have the compassion and the fortitude to be able to stand up and make that difference. Whereas from my perspective, from my experience, having been thrust into the CIA's MK Ultra mind control project so very, very early on, being part of the child sex trafficking rings, the blackmail operations, and everything else, I got a lot of insight into the corruption and how far it has permeated. And it also gave me a lot of insight through my experience into the reality of mind control, the sliding scale of it, from the kind of torturous robotic mind control I experienced to information control, because we all formulate our thoughts, opinions, and actions based on what we know. We need to know our knowledge base has been deliberately altered for a long, long time. We have been conditioned to look outside ourselves, to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult religion, to solve our problems for us, when in fact, we got all the power. We have all the capability within us, and we need to look within and gather that strength of spirit and start making a difference. When I was a little bitty girl, nobody was paying attention. Back in the early 60s, I was born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan, and my family was multi-generational, incest-based. Nobody was paying any attention to what was going on. My church was involved, but the local politicians were involved. And nobody was really looking to see what was happening, because the information on systematic child abuse has been deliberately kept secret in order to create a compliant society for a globalist agenda. It's been creeping in on us for generations now, and having seen the plans being formulated, being deep in the swamp among these perpetrators who steal elections, fund their global agenda with drug and human trafficking across open borders, and use child sex trafficking blackmail to keep each other in line. They're using mind control as their means of ushering it in, because it's against the human nature. It's against the human spirit. It's an assault on all that humanity stands for. But we've been, dulled down. We've been misled. We've had our information suppressed, truth suppressed for so long. Knowledge is our defense against mind control. So they made sure that information was suppressed. And then we were experienced trauma after trauma after trauma in order to keep our conscious mind frozen in fright, leaving our subconscious wide open to being easily led and manipulated. People wonder how child sex trafficking has become the most lucrative business in the world. It's because mind control has been used on the whole global population. And we need to start understanding the components in mind control so that we can all wake up, remember who we are, why we're here, and effectively protect the children going forward.
That's why we're all here. That's why we're all doing this. And I always use the word plague on humanity, because that's exactly what it is. If anybody who's a parent and you even think about this, give it the slightest thought, and imagine that it was your child, what you would do. And I think that was Tim Ballard's line. What would you do if you woke up, you went inside, and the bed was empty? It's a horror. It's a horror. But what the kids go through, what you went through, is a horror. And on a young mind, it's so impactful, because those are your formative years. And your formative years are supposed to be not only educational, but they're supposed to be enjoyable. And a lot of these kids don't experience that. So, guys, why don't you tell us a little bit more about ARC?
Thank you. We've been operating in the trenches for about now coming up on 34 years. I think it makes us probably one of the longest running child rescue organizations. So most of, if not all of our experience is what we try to transfer off to anybody else. When I first got started in this, there were a lot of things that I had heard about, and I didn't necessarily think they were conspiratorial, but I didn't want to ever speculate, and I certainly didn't want to lose my credibility. And so I had to figure out if a lot of things that we were talking about, much like what Cathy's talking about, what Tina will talk about, and what a number of people in the United States are becoming aware of, whether we're talking about children being organ harvested, adrenochrome, satanic cults, sacrifice. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I had an opportunity to slow walk this through 34 years to come to the conclusion after about 6 years of being in the trenches and seeing the worst of the worst that it was indeed all true. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that can go off to left field and run with the truth and make it look like, okay, now everybody that's in child sex trafficking, they're all aliens from Mars. Of course, people do that as well. But I will tell you that when it comes to the subject matter, and we are the SME subject matter experts on all this, it doesn't come, Mark, from something we read. It comes from what we see in the trenches, what we've experienced, the people we've rescued, the investigations that we've done on not only the common predator on the street, but also to the globalists and the leaders of countries and bureaucracy, things that Cathy was actually referring to. So rest assured, I'm always concerned about my credibility, and it still remains intact by God's good graces, because what we speak to in this issue is all truth. We don't. It's so much truth that we don't have to go out and try to make something else up, because it's so horrific as it is. When you talk about using kids as a commodity, when you talk about a multi-billion-dollar business that is being run globally as drugs were, using the same logistical mechanism for terrorists, drugs, children, whatever it may be, you have to ask yourself one question. We don't see it openly, so it has to be very sophisticated. It has to be controlled. People have to be on the payroll to let something, a product, in this case, children, go from point A to point B undetected. Because, if we're looking at what Tom Holman said, that we have close to 500,000 UACs, undocumented alien children in the U.S., and then if we look at the 438,000 American children that we thought existed before that, and those numbers fluctuate, of course, a little bit, but not by much. You have to say, well, we don't see them walking on the streets. Where are they? It's a really good question. Question is, how many basements do we have in America where kids could be held? How many pharmaceutical labs in America could kids be held? How many warehouses could kids be held in? How many kids are shipped around the United States and across overseas that are being trafficked? So this is what we get our bread and butter in when it comes to teaching people, and we're able to hold the line really well, because if you're an eyewitness to something, there is nobody on the planet can tell you it's not happening, because you'll just laugh at them and you'll go, you don't know what you're talking about. In fact, so much to the degree, and Tina has to stop me on this, that I don't have any problem looking at people and going, you're an idiot. In fact, you're a fool, because you don't know. You're speaking to something you haven't seen, and I have. So there was a time in the United States where even ARC was challenged with all the ugliness that we were seeing, and I didn't really know how to respond to it. Now I'm at a point, after seeing so much of it, that I don't even waste my energy on responding to people that are that stupid or that are hiding or whatever it may be. So there's people that don't want to admit that it's happening. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is they're probably complicit in the crime. or they're just too busy and they're not aware that it's happening, or they're protecting the global business. And there are things that are getting ready to come out, and we can't speak to them because they're very sensitive right now. But I can assure all of our listeners that there are people that you know, that you have seen on TV, that are powerful influencers in government that are directly involved in all this. And our goal in life is to not only rescue every single kid, we define success as one child at a time, but is to be a part of a coalition of patriots that actually are going to bring down much of the deep state that's involved in this. We're gonna hit it relentlessly. Um, so in our own government, fortunately, one of the blessings we have now with 47 and General Mike Flynn and these guys, they're taking people to task, and they really understand and they get it. And we saw when 47 was 45 how everybody laughed at him saying there was a deep state. Well, there is a deep state. I'm a guy that comes from an organization that overthrew governments. Okay, so I understand that world very well. And the thing that was most surprising for me and my associates who were retired from an organization that at one time did protect the United States. I can't say that about it now. It's just way too compartmented, and there's things that happen there that most people don't know about. But I can say that at least this administration is trying to rectify a lot of things that were done wrong, and trying to do two things: clean up corruption and then run government at the same time. And the great thing about 47 is that he's a real believer in we the people, much to what Cathy's alluding to. Tina, please.
So ARC has been rescuing missing, exploited, sex trafficked children for 34 years now. I've been with them 10 years, focusing on just underage victims of trafficking. The encouraging thing I would say, and I just want to thank you, Mark, and other people, Cathy, who have been out there speaking. Cathy, you're the leader as far as victims coming forward and having the courage to talk about this. Nobody believed, and so many people don't want to believe what is now so evident. And it's from us telling you from our experiences and from the cases that we've worked. When I started working in this field, I did not know what human trafficking. I thought it was the families trafficking kids for money and foster system. And then as I got into it, I realized not only is it gangs and organized crime, it's governments, it's elites, it's anybody with power. And I was trying to find out who's running the show. And guess what? It goes up and up and up and up. As far as who is running the show on trafficking, it goes all the way up to the top of human powers on the earth. And that is what people, I think, are really struggling to even be aware of. And one of the reasons people don't get involved, they don't know what to do, but they aren't outraged enough. This is something that we struggle with. Like you said, Mark, how can you not be outraged? Like, this should make everyone crazy that this is happening. And why are people so desensitized? And that's why I think what Cathy's talking about, and she has lived this and knows it from firsthand experience, that this is a system designed to numb everyone out and to make sure the victims are dehumanized. They have no identity, but to also make sure that every good person in society is also dehumanized so that they won't do anything about it. And this will go unchecked.
This is why, Mark, by design, much like Cathy's talking about, we became an over-sexualized society, and we bent our morality to the point that it's almost reversed. People believe that it's okay to have sex with children. Let's make this really clear. To couple things. It's not a political issue, and it's not okay. These are crimes against children. That's exactly what it is, and they should be punishable by the death penalty in my book. And I think that's when we start seeing a little bit of results when it comes to accountability and our judicial system getting back to where it was or should be. But also, people believe that if you discover something, and we saw this in the last administration, if you discover an issue or a crime, that somebody is doing something about it, just because we discover it. It goes back to that illustration that I used the last time we spoke, and Cathy in Yuba City. I told people, I said, you remember how many people remember, excuse me, when we used to put the kids' pictures on the missing kids on the milk carton? And so what happened was people would look at the picture of the missing kid every morning when they poured their milk in their coffee or their cereal. And they felt good that they were looking at the picture of the missing kid on the milk carton. And then they did that all week. And every time they poured it, they felt good about the fact that they were looking at it, and they thought they were doing something about it by looking at it. At the end of the week, the milk carton was empty and it went in the garbage can. Did that kid come home? No. Did that traffic victim get saved? No. Here's the reality. A child that is lost, missing, or being sexually exploited or trafficked does not come home until somebody with boots on the ground go into the darkness and get their hands on that kid and bring them home. And that's never going to change. And that's what we do. And that's what other NGOs do. And that is why we, the people at the community level, cannot depend, no matter how good this bureaucracy is right now, it fluctuates. So we, the people, cannot rely on any government entity to clean up our own backyards. Now, should people care enough? They should. They should. But sadly, because of the sin in the world and the evil in the world, there are people that not only don't care about this issue, but they are the ones that are trying to pass laws where it can become legal by changing the name of a pedophile to a minor attracted person. So we again get desensitized and we think differently, and everybody says it's acceptable. This is also the reason why I question when a death penalty is passed against child rapists in any state in America, and I come to find out it only applies to children that are 12 years and younger. I go, what about the 13 to 18? What's going on here? Why did we not just pass it from 18 and below? And so, it makes me really wonder. I want to get in there and say, well, who's getting paid? Because what we know in the porn industry is that, and this is speaking from investigative facts, what I know and being undercover is that as long as you can give the porn industry a little young flesh, and 18 to 13 will do it for them, you're going to pass along your state that's 12 and below. So the penalty, you still got the same thing happening. You're just doing it now with 13-year-olds to 18-year-olds. And so, and other people, when that law passes, they go, well, that's great, do that penalty. But they don't dive into the small print, and they don't really understand the industry that well when it comes to some of that stuff. So I think if 47's listening to this, I would encourage him to pass the death penalty on a federal level, 18 and below, and no plea bargaining, no mercy at all. That's the end of the story right there. There is a reason why Jesus said, it is better that a millstone be put around a man's neck and thrown in the ocean and drown than to ever harm one of these little ones. I think the Hebrew translation for that is you die.
It's a really sad state that we have progressed into. Now, Cathy's the expert on brainwashing and how it works and where it goes and how they do it and why they do it. But I always look at it in the sense of, for 46 years, I helped. The TV industry, broadcasting in general, TV, radio, whatever it happens to be, advertising, movies, have all been brainwashing the people. And they've brought it to a point where you're right, people are desensitized. When I had Lynn Hagerman Scott on the show, and she spoke about being in the underground tunnels below universities in this country. Just the thought of stuff like that and the things that she experienced, the things that Cathy has shared and others have shared, it's a sick and depraved thing.
Mhm.
Now, when I went to school, we had teachers who were gay. We knew they were gay. Nobody cared. They did their thing after school. We did our things after school, and nobody made a big deal out of it. But everything has been pushed to and over the edge. And this political correctness that it's caused this kind of an issue. And that's why laws like that do get passed, aside from the fact that the people who make the laws are actively participating in that anyway. So it's called protecting your own butt. But when you look at the design, Cathy, of the brainwashing that we've all been through, what you experienced, what the media has done to push the program forward, if you take the MK Ultra and transpose it into a mass public arena like the mainstream media, how far do you see it leading into where we have come? Not to where we're going, but to where we have been for all these years.
Well, it's definitely taken its toll on humanity by very deliberate design. The formula for mind control is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, a classroom, a military, a church, or the world. And trauma is the basis of it. That formula for mind control came into the US through Project Paperclip. When we imported the Nazi and fascist scientists into the US in the wake of World War II, they brought with them the formula for mind control. They found there was no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while their brain is still forming. It's because of how our brains respond to trauma. It takes traumatic memory and represses it. It shuts down neuron pathways in the brain. The more neuron pathways that are shut down in the brain, the less critical analysis free thought we have. And if we lose our free thought, we lose our free will. If we lose our free will, we lose our soul expression. If we lose our soul expression, we lose our discernment of truth, our compassion for each other, our ability to go within and to align with the divine within, gather the strength of the human spirit, tap into that infinite power of love, and take a stand against the crimes against humanity that we're seeing. Instead, with our conscious mind frozen in fright, our subconscious becomes wide open to being easily led and manipulated. Media's repetitive narrative 3 times becomes a program in the subconscious mind. That's why when mind control masked as a virus was unleashed on the global population, how many times did we hear? Mask up, get the injection, social distance. We were told over, it programmed the global population. Everybody has experienced the formula for MK Ultra mind control. Within that formula is sleep, food, and water deprivation. Because if we don't get proper nutrition, if we don't get proper rest, our brains don't fire properly. Again, mind control shuts down neuron pathways. We need them open. We need our brains firing and in the way that it is intended. We need to be able to be sharp and brilliant and think free. So that's so important for us. But when our food is tainted very deliberately and bioengineered to starve our brains, when it's genetically altered to starve our brains, we're dumbing down more and more. When our water is tainted with fluoride and other chemicals, that's taking away our capacity for free thought. When we're working 9 to 5, 5 to 9 to put food on the table that has no nutritional values, then we're exhausted, and that's affecting our brain firing and our functions. So ultimately, we need to understand that the whole global population has had mind control imposed on them from many different levels and directions. And it's also why we're being bombarded with trauma after trauma after trauma, whether they're real, whether they're just a constant barrage of bloody traumatic images. The point's the same. It causes our conscious mind to freeze in fright and leaves our subconscious wide open to being easily led and manipulated. When we understand that formula, when we understand that, we have a defense against it, because it's our birthright to be able to think free and say no, to be able to go within and gather that strength of spirit and effectively, protect the children going forward. We've all been affected. We've been affected for generations. The sub-project of MK Ultra that I was born into was Monarch. Monarch is a multi-generational project, and it was found through the Hitler-Himmler research that after 3 generations, any knowledge base, abuse base, or belief system becomes autogenic in the brain. It's passed down genetically. We're born with that knowledge. And if we're dumbed down for generation after generation, we just get slower and slower in our thinking. It's how people have been conditioned now for generations to accept this pedophile agenda. The pedophile agenda is a mind control agenda. It's very deliberate to attack our humanity, to stop our ability to gather that strength of the human spirit. Because when we have that, that's our saving grace. That's our victory. That's our win. That's when we're able to stand up against this dark, negative energy force that's been intruding on our brilliant minds and lives. It's our birthright to be able to reclaim that. Because people everywhere remember who they are and why they're here. We're having this great awakening. It's people are ready to start taking action. Now that they're awake, like my daughter Kelly was saying the other day, she said, yay, finally people are waking up. But wow, do they ever have a long way to go to catch up on information that's been suppressed for so long, and for all the diversions that have been deliberately put out there. But they're waking up just the same, and they're needing answers. And that is why it's so important that we're doing exactly what we are right now. What Tina and Baz are doing is so essential for educating the people on what they can effectively do. People want to know what they can do. They can educate themselves. They can understand exactly what we're up against, how to effectively protect children, and support those of us who are been in the trenches for so long, making that difference, to at least support us in the effort, because it takes a lot to be able to effectively help others when the system is so corrupted that it puts obstruction after obstruction in the way that have to be overcome. So, it's going to take all of us to wake up and start making the difference, all of us to unite and start making that difference, because this swamp cannot be drained from the top down. It's up to each and every one of us to drain it from the bottom up. And this is our time. This is our chance. And that's what we're doing right now, and why we're so determined and diligent and relentless in educating others so they can be empowered to make a difference for the children's sake.
It's all about the children. Absolutely all about the children. Now, Baz, you had quite the career, and you have very specific skills in being able to see certain things, recognize certain things, and assess and act upon them. Now, I know that a lot of the training that you do is mostly centered around former first responders, police, fire, FBI, Secret Service, all of that. What is it that you try to relay to these people in the course to get them to understand how you could spot a child trafficker, how you could spot a trafficked child, and how you bring them along to the point where they feel at least somewhat safe and confident that they can move forward from the abuse that they've experienced?
Yeah, great question. I think I'll let Tina and myself, it'll be two parts. I'll answer the first part and then let her speak to it, what it is we teach them to bring them along. Um, we have a lot of people in the course, Mark, not only first responders, but I mean, we have people from the age of 82 all the way down to age 13, and they're out of the community, and they are pastors, they're lawyers, they're school teachers, they're moms, they're dads. They're people that have been aware and are becoming aware and saying, awareness isn't enough for me. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to get in there and save it, because if I don't, they're going to come get my kids next. And that's very true. I got to tell you, there are some great parents out there. And at the same time, there are some parents that really suck. You know, when I see a kid that's 7 years old with a phone in their hands in the back seat of a car looking at pornography or anything they want to, and it's not being controlled by the parent, that's bad parenting. Okay, you may go home and lock the door thinking nobody can get to them, but yet the door's open with their computer, with their phone, their influences, and all those things. So parenting, yeah, that's another thing. People ought to learn how to parent their kids well too. When we get a lot of people in the course, they initially show up, and when they look at the curriculum, it's very overwhelming for them because this is a new AO, a new area of operation for them. But I like to start out and encourage them by saying one man and one woman with courage is a majority. And don't look for somebody else to come join you to do this. Look, there was 3% of the colonists that beat the British out of this country, okay? Not everybody in the 13 colonies got on board. And look at what that 3% did. And we reap the benefits of that by the freedom we have, the Constitution we have, some amazing founding fathers, uh, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And guess what? Those weren't storybook figures. Those were real people who are buried in real graves that bled for this country. So I let people know that you're going to have to bleed for this country too. Nothing, you want freedom, you want to save children, it doesn't come easy. You got to be willing to do it if you care about the future of the country. And so I try to inspire them out, out from the get go. And I also am very upfront with them by cementing this issue uh, in the truth. And the truth is this: child sex trafficking has been going on for a long time, since the beginning of time, probably. And anybody who tells you that we're going to end it hasn't been in the trenches long enough. It's not going to happen until God comes back. Okay, this is bigger than anybody can imagine. And when people start figuring out how big it really is, they get really overwhelmed. It's very daunting, and they think, how do we clean all this up? You don't. You fight one battle at a time because you care. Because if you do not, who will? And you go and you do this unselfishly because, as you said, Mark, this is not about us. This is about them. And we find that people that have the greatest purpose in life acquire that by serving others. Okay. And so serving the community, serving the country, serving the children that are lost, this is all important. But in order to do this, you have to be very well trained. This area of operation uh, in itself is not safe. It can be very dangerous on many, many levels. It can tear you apart and ruin your life if you don't know how to proceed carefully and cautiously. This is not an arena you get into and say, well, I'm going to do this on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. No, this is 24/7. When you get a call that there's a 7-year-old standing on the street corner in some town, you go, you go. You don't wait for somebody else to do it. You don't wait for law enforcement to do it. And you also have to educate yourself on why it's not being done. Why are we not winning the war, so to speak? And we learn many, many things. Like the most recent one that we learned, which is pretty much a national issue, is why the human trafficking hotline is so bad. Why people weren't answering the phone, why tips weren't going to law enforcement. I'll tell you why. Because you get on the government payroll, there's no oversight for that spending. And guess what? You collect a paycheck and you don't think that anybody else is going to see what you're doing or not doing. Okay. So These are kind of the things we make people aware of, so that they have a really clear picture of what they're getting into. And then we give them solutions on how to win the war. Tina, please.
Yes. So in answer to your question about how you identify the trafficking, the trafficked person or the trafficking situation, then how do you build trust to get that person to cooperate with help? I've had some great conversations with Cathy about this because our methods are very much in line with what she said. Um, you can identify a trafficking situation from the outside with observation, looking for an imbalance of power. It's and we spend 3 days in the course answering this question that you just posed, which is how to identify a traffic victim. You're going to see somebody who is not in charge, who doesn't reflect free thinking, right? Who is following orders, who is only responsive to cued responses or prepared reactions. Now, exploiters are moving into a vulnerability in a kid's life. So it starts there. Now we teach from A to Z how this happens. They could be moving into a food, water, warmth, and rest need. The kid doesn't have basic need, and they provide that, right? Or they could be moving into love and belonging. This person has a great family, but they're ignored. They don't feel heard. And so the exploiter moves into that pocket. Or this person needs success or a feeling of esteem. So I'm going to offer this girl a job in acting, and I'm going to make all her dreams come true. So they're finding a need in this person's life and then moving in and fulfilling the need, and then becoming making that person dependent on them for it. Then they remove all other support systems from their life. So they're going to drive a wedge with their family. They're going to start fights with any trusted person in their life. They're going to drive wedges between the victim and that source of help until the victim is completely isolated. Then that's where the mental handcuffs come in, which is what Cathy was talking about. You shatter the identity of the person. You break them down so that they have no sense of themselves except what you are dictating to them. And that's why traffic victims can be out in public all day long. They don't need to have chains on them because they're mentally handcuffed. And if you get them to help, what do? They run back to the exploiter. They run back to the slaveholder. That's how strong those mental handcuffs are. So when we talk about how to liberate people from this, it's one thing that I always start with, and I've worked over 500 cases. You connect with the true identity of this victim, right? You go beside and around everything that they think they are, and you connect to their true self. When they feel and they wake up, they feel that connection. Wait, this is my true self. And I always explain, like Cathy has said, it's not your fault that you believe what these people have told you. They've told you lies. You believe lies. It's not your fault. It's what they've told you to believe. But that is not the truth. And the truth is you are this other person. You are this person. You are your own. You have your own will and your own power to think. And once the lies or once the truth turns on like that, they stop believing the lies. And they know that what you have spoken is true. It rings true in their heart. And that's why they come. And Baz and I have never had a kid not come with us after we start that. They hear that what we have spoken, it rings true in their heart, and they say, this is truth, and they know the difference, and they come.
Yeah, no, it's pretty thorough, and this is why you have to learn it. Tina talks about something which is interesting, and people are trying to figure out, well, how did they lose their identity? And let's say you have a 5-year-old that is recruited at 5 years old. That's the last day they were probably happy. And when you can take them back, sometimes Tina will take them and go, tell me the last time you were happy. It takes them all the way back to that happy moment, and then they remember who they were. Now, there's a lot more to this process, of course, but very much like what Cathy is talking about in the brainwashing arena and what Tina's talking about, and I know this from my time as well, you cannot hold anyone captive that knows who they are. What happens is it's kind of like what the communists do or tried to do with Antifa and all those people in the globalists: tear down our history, tear down our statues, tear down everything that told us that we were Americans, get rid of the national anthem in school, get rid of prayer. And what happens is once you've destroyed that, the new generations that come up don't know that, and they become what you want them to become. You become the globalist, the socialist, or whatever it is. And that is when you look at a bigger picture of trafficking, it is all inclusive when it comes to the state of the nation, trafficking, drugs, cartel. It all runs on the same platform, pretty much so. If you can destroy the minds and the hearts of the people, if you destroy them by drugs, if you destroy them by trafficking, if you cause disruptions and they lose faith in who they are and in their church and their God. I mean, this is why the socialists and the communists, what's the first thing they tell you? You don't have a creator. You're not created in God's image. There is no God, right? Well, there is a God, and we know there is. You look up and I mean, we just know that. But if you can erase that, then people aren't empowered to go, wait a minute, I'm created in the image of my God, of God, the creator of this universe. And that means I am beholding to no one on this earth but God. That gives me free will, freedom, and power. And that's what our Constitution was based on. But if we can erase all that, yeah, so the restoration process, which is a whole different ballgame after, people think sometimes we do the sexy stuff by going in and getting a kid out. Let me tell you what, the hard work is done by the people that are in aftercare, restoring those souls, restoring those lives, because we always say this, how do you murder a child without killing them? And the answer is simple. You sexually exploit them because they die every single day of their life. We run into very few people that have reached where Cathy is right now. If you're being trafficked as a young kid, if at 5 or 6, you're lucky if you get to be 12 before you commit suicide or drug overdose or whatever it is. But you have no will to live. You have no purpose. You're enslaved. And so it is sad. It is one of the most horrendous things that we could do to human beings. I say this sometimes, Mark, that there are things done to children by evil people that most interrogators during wartime will not even do to their enemies. And I'm serious about that. It's dead. And people go, no, it can't be that bad. Yeah, it's that bad. It's that bad.
Well, the sad part about that statement is I've heard it from far too many guests on this show. That is truly the sad part. And that's why I keep doing more and more on the series and trying to demonstrate to the people how important it is to keep this in the forefront of your mind and how important it is to keep talking about it and to be aware of it. So now, that being said, because we're about halfway through right now, we all know what a scourge this is on the world. And we all know how important it is to save and rescue the children. Now, because we're a community working to try and stem the tide of this and to try and make things better and to try and rescue the children and make them safe, rehabilitate them, make them useful parts of the world, it's important that we have not only safe places for them to go to, but safe, well-trained people to help to rehabilitate them. That is the reason tonight that we have Baz and Tina here with Cathy, and to demonstrate exactly what it is we're doing and how important this is to this community. This show is being streamed by a bunch of other truthers who were decent enough and felt this topic important enough to simulstream this show and get it out in front of as many eyes as possible. And I will mention them later on and thank them later on in the show for this. But in the meantime, what this is about is, as we look at what's going on, we have to know that there are things out there that we need to learn about. And part of that happens to be what Baz and Tina do and what they're talking about. So that being said, while a lot of you go every week and you will very kindly, out of the kindness of your hearts, donate Rumble Rants, basically to say thank you for what we do, and it's greatly appreciated. What I would like you all to do, instead of putting in Rumble Rants, is anything that you could spare, $1, $2, $5, and that QR code that's up there right now, as well as this, the money that goes to this website goes 100% into training people to recognize child traffickers and to help them help the children who have been trafficked. When this idea was first brought to me, it was brought to me with the idea that hopefully we could raise 17, of course, it had to be $17,000 to try and get a bunch of people trained. My immediate response was, well, why not do $18,000 and we can get 30 people trained? So then, after thinking about it for a while, I said, you know what? We are a community, and we're a community who fully well understands, and the president stated it right from the get-go, it's all about the children. We must end this scourge of child trafficking, and we will. So I encourage you, and I hope that you will respond and donate whatever you can, whatever you feel comfortable doing. There's no pressure here, but whatever you can do will go 100% into training people to be able to recognize traffickers, recognize trafficked children, and to help rehabilitate these children. And the more people that we can get trained, the more money that comes in, the more people we can get trained. It's as simple as that. So we would appreciate your help. We appreciate you going forward and doing whatever you can. Again, you've got the QR code up there. You've got the site down there. And now we will continue with our scheduled program. But I thank you all for your indulgence. But this is a very, very, very important topic to me. And I guess you all know that because you come back every week and watch me talk about this. So I really appreciate this, and any help that you all can be will be greatly appreciated. So let's get back into the trafficking aspect of it and remove other media. What other media? There's no other media there. I wanted to put up your site and show that to them, unless they're talking about this over here. But let's get back to exactly how we go around getting these people, recruiting these people, first of all, to be interested in wanting to do this. You said you were getting people from 82 down to 13 to do this. And it's amazing, not so much that you can get older people to do it, but to get a child as young as 13 who could be trafficked themselves to be interested in doing this. They have to be aware to a certain extent that this is actually going on in our world. They have to be seeing the ridiculousness that goes on in our schools, in our neighborhoods, in discussions, in the way people treat each other. So how does it come about that people come to you initially for the training? And how do you decide how you recruit them?
So we love the people that will take 6 days to come get trained on this have usually been activated by a personal experience. And that's most of them. So we have, like you said, we have people under 20 years old that come almost every course. We've got some teenagers or young 20s. Most of them have seen something happen to somebody they know, or they have a friend or an exploiter tried to get them or someone they know. And so their eyes are getting big because they recognized that something is wrong and that everyone else is going along with it, and they want to do something about it. So the youth that we get, I love this because exactly like you said, those are in the group that would be targeted by traffickers. So when I started this work, my kids, I had two daughters, 8 and 10, and I told God the same thing. I'm like, these are the girls that traffickers would be targeting. And God said, are you going to hide or are you going to fight? It's like that. All these kids that are out there, these youth that are out there deciding to get trained and go against the grain, are deciding to fight rather than to hide or try to just ignore what's going on. So we had a 17-year-old that took our training. She asked me to come back to speak at her high school a year later. She had started a peer group under high school for anybody that wanted to get involved in learning about human trafficking. I thought I was going to have like 12 kids in the room at lunch, right? I walked in, it was wall to wall. There were 55, 60 kids in there, standing room only, right? She had started this on her campus and had recruited 60 other high schoolers to stand up against trafficking. And guess what? They provided a safe place where kids that were being exploited or said, "Hey, wait, something's wrong," or they've been abused in their own homes and they're starting to get put out with strangers, like they could come to that room at lunchtime on campus and find someone to help them. It's remarkable. So we love that. But yeah, a lot of our course covers all the demographics of people. We've got a lot of school nurses that are in their 70s, or like chaplains that are in the jails, right? Women's jails or youth jails. They're going into the juvenile detention centers as chaplains, and they're older and but they're seeing that these people are being exploited and abused sexually. And this started in their home. This started when they were children or even infants. And so they're getting trained to know what to do. And when you know what to do, now you're not afraid of the problem anymore. Where I think a lot of people see, I saw something weird, but I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to go the other way. So who we have show up to the course who want to get trained are normally people who saw something and didn't know what to do, and it plagues them. So we've had people running for public office, who said, look, I walked by a situation. I was in a meeting with a bunch of other senators and congressmen, and I saw a child being exploited, or I saw exploitation in that circle, and I didn't know what to do, and I was embarrassed, so I said nothing, and I did nothing. And now they're coming back saying, I was wrong. I was wrong. I need to know what to do. Law enforcement investigators, we have people that are working undercover as investigators who come to the course to learn how to identify, how to infiltrate trafficking cells to identify victims. The hardest one, you know what the hardest one is? What Cathy went through, where it's happening in the home. And I mean, that is the hardest thing to see. And it's the hardest thing to get help with. And then CPS is a huge problem. But yeah, those are people showing up to the course.
We're having another real rise in former war fighters, which is great. Guys that were Iraq, Afghanistan, like could be the age if I had a son, would be my son and stuff. And these are very patriotic individuals who have gone out, like many of us who have been downrange, and all of a sudden are waking up to the fact that most of the time they did not go over to protect our country. They went over for a political agenda, or somebody in a higher up space in Congress or whatever, manipulating a diplomatic situation that ended up in war, and whatever it may be. But one thing they learned on the ground is while they were there, they were protecting their buddies, or they were protecting innocent people. And so a lot of the warfighters that we have that come, particularly out of Afghanistan, saw children being abused in Kabul and other places, but they could do nothing about it. The command wouldn't allow them to do anything about it. It wasn't what their mission. It wasn't their mission to do that. And they got picked to the States, and they're like, I have all this experience. In fact, I have more experience than most of the police department in my town, and but I just don't want to get a paycheck. And I reason I know their heart's in the right place is because our organization is an all volunteer service. I require everybody to go out and do something else to pay their mortgage. So these people that would come to us with resumes, and we get resumes every week, maybe sometimes twice a day. I'll say, we don't pay any salary, and these guys will say, I don't want a salary. I want to go save children. So if I look at, and I don't know if this number is correct, somebody told me we have close to 50 million veterans in this country that served this country and loved this country and took an oath to defend it against enemies, foreign and domestic. Let me let them know there is a domestic enemy here that has crept in, that is destroying this country. And if they destroy all the children, we will have nobody to grow up and defend this country in the future. So I want to encourage veterans. And this is when I do this, I take meetings, closed door meetings, and I've always got somebody in the government or law enforcement are saying, why did you say that? This is just going to cause us problems. We don't need all these Americans out here getting in our way. Guess what? Some of these people do a better job than what's being done right now. So here's what I encourage the government, and I encourage law enforcement to create what I call community policing partnerships with your people that are trained. Particularly if we train them, you're getting good people. And then you do like the cop on the beat used to do in New York City. When he walked the beat, he got his intel from the neighborhood, when the crimes were being committed, because the people loved him and he loved the people. Well, in the United States, people in America need to know what their rights are. In some states, citizens arrest is still there. You see a crime being committed, you can arrest a pimp for committing a crime against a child. Now, you got to be careful and you got to know what you're doing and you got to be trained. But there's a lot of warfighters that know how to do that. There's a lot of warfighters that came out of Afghanistan that kicked doors in and saved people's lives and saved children and men and women. Where are they in this whole picture? And that's what I want to ask them right now. Out of the 50 million that may be here, I don't care if you're 80, I don't care if you went to Vietnam, Korea, whatever it is. Where are you in this picture? Where are you when it comes to defending the Constitution and the freedom of the people that so many of our associates and colleagues bled for and died for? Did we do it overseas to come back here and not do anything to protect our country? And this is a big issue. This is a national security issue. And so I want to encourage every veteran in this country to get trained up the right way. Department of Defense is getting ready to send close to 7,000 more fighters on the border on this issue right now. And guess what they're asking us? They need to be trained because they realize that they know how to fight wars, but this area of operation is a little different, And so you're dealing with trafficking, dealing with children, dealing with dangers of the cartel and the criminal enterprise, which much to what Cathy said, it is global. Most people, when we hear that the cartel is involved in this, think of like it's just the cartel in Mexico. The cartel is so big, it has more money than any government in the world. So the question is, how do you fight against that? That's always a big question. But also, and I'm speaking from experience, I could show you photos of people in Washington standing right next to members of the cartel. And you go, what's that all about? So this is the corruption that 47 is going after, and Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem and Tulsi. Tulsi spoke about it just recently. She knows about it and everything. We got to clean that corruption up. But here's my cry to the 50 million that are out there. Get involved. You have the training. Supplement your training with more training when it comes to, and save the children of our country. We get that done, other countries will follow. They will see our example. It has always been that way. God has blessed us that way. We are the most powerful nation in the world. And what we do is what most people follow.
Well, one of the big problems that you have nowadays, which is absolutely a roadblock that they've thrown in front of us is, God forbid, like you said, in regard to you see a pimp abusing a kid, you go over and get involved, you are now the criminal. That's how they've turned it around against us. If you go and you help, you see somebody fall on the street, they get hit by a car, or they just trip and fall and they hurt themselves, and you go and prop them up and put your coat behind the neck. Next thing you know, you get a knock on the door with a summons from a lawyer saying that you injured the victim and they're suing you for everything that you got. The laws in this country need to change. And it goes, like you just said, Baz, you've got a situation whereby you have these lawmakers posing for pictures with members of the cartels. And that's what I've said for years, is the fact that why do these campaigns cost so much? Because the people who want to pay to get certain people elected want to pay it so that the laws are made in their favor, not for ours.
That's right.
They're not representing us, they're representing them.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing, Mark, you bring up, and I'd like to just address it. Most people, there are a lot of great laws on the books, but lawmakers look important by making new laws. And there's probably a law already on the books that was, 50 years earlier. We just don't enforce our laws. Much to what you said, there's a Good Samaritan law that protects us from helping the person that got in the car accident, that you prop the jacket underneath. Every state has citizens arrest laws. And as long as you remain within the law, you're covered. What happens is and this goes back to something Cathy mentioned, and it's so true, and I'm glad you did, Cathy. We have been led to believe that we have no power in our own country to do things, and we do. And the laws will work for you when it comes to particularly this issue, rescuing children, as long as you mitigate your liability and stay in the lane and never break the law, so to speak. But this is why it's important. And this is one of the things we teach. What are the laws in your state? What is it you can do and when you can't do? But instead of empowering people, which makes any government, local, state, or federal government, really afraid, because it takes us back to our founding fathers when we had tyranny in this country, and we had a thing called the American Revolution. And we said, we do have laws and we'll create great laws for the freedom of our nation and stuff like this. Well, still, because of corruption in local, state, and federal government, they don't want their people to know about those laws. Now, the smart senators, the smart congressmen, the smart mayors, the smart judges are the ones that get out there and recruit those people. And they train them and they say, here's what you can do, and we need your help. Whether it's whatever you see, report it. Whether it's, I need 5 war fighters to supplement my police department to go in after this cartel guy that's in a stash house that's holding 15 kids, or whatever it may be. The reason they don't, from my experience, is because we have people in leadership positions that want to protect their position, and they're not willing to take the risk to save a child. So guess what? They let the child die. They let the child suffer instead of reaching out and saying, hey, there might be somebody else that I can learn from. There might be somebody else that I could bring in and help us with this. I'm going to tell you something, and I have friends at the FBI. I got friends all in all the 3-letter agencies. All the people in those agencies are not the most shiniest apples in the basket. Okay, they're just not. So don't be intimidated by that and think they do. They don't. They're pretty good at it. But I'm going to tell you something. There are people out here in NGOs that far surpass our 3-letter agencies right now on everything from intelligence to the ability to rescue kids and whatever it may be. This is one of the reasons Tom Holman's hiring people right now for ICE, because he knows there's good people out there. This is why they're offering that incentive. He's not a dummy. He's smart. He knows that we got war fighters out there, and he knows that if he supplements his forces with good people, the cleanup will be done faster and it'll be done the right way. So this is what I tell people in the community. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Get out there, know what you can do, and go do it.
I just want to add one more thing about the when we do the course, toward the end of the course, after we've explained all the different ways to get involved, we do direct people in 6 different arenas that they can get involved in, or so you can get involved in awareness, uh, uh, getting into schools and training parents and staff and teachers and kids. What are the signs of exploitation, how to spot it. And again, the hard ones are the ones that are in the home, where the kid is being exploited by their legal custodial party, like, they're in a foster home where their foster parent is the one trafficking them. But we still train how you can do something about that. Intervention, which is how you identify somebody that is being trafficked and intervene in their situation, get them to switch the gear and be ready to get out. And then what do you do now? So how do you get them out of that situation? Now, what do you do? Where do you go? So how to find aftercare programs or safe houses, how to deal with the legal parameters of, this is a juvenile, so someone has custody, right? So how do you deal with custodial boundaries and legal boundaries? The citizens arrest laws, how you use that in your favor. And then we do talk about hunting bad guys. So if you're a person out there that has technical skills, how to, there are ethical hackers that are out there that are testing security systems for companies. You can use those skills also to basically identify trafficking networks. So any type of skill that you come to the table with, you can apply to this field, because the gangs and the criminal enterprises, they have tech departments too. They're out there on the internet putting fake websites up or dirty stuff. They're laundering money through their businesses. One of the great NGOs that we work with works with banking, so they are able to track dirty money. And anyway, I'm just saying, there's a way to get involved no matter what your field, what your expertise is. And we do help connect people with organizations and ways to get involved right away.
Yeah, Mark, let me say this before I hang myself with a short rope from a tall tree on the shiny apples. Cash and Dan, I know you guys are doing a great job to get rid of the unshiny apples. Okay, so I'm mostly speaking to the prior administration and what was happening as far as cleanup is going, because I think everybody's doing their very best to do a better job. So hopefully, we start seeing those partnerships. We start seeing the 3-letter agencies reaching out to the community and asking for their help, because there's more eyes out there. There really are. If you ever had a chance to go to Israel, every citizen there is looking out for terrorists. I mean, they're all well trained, and this is what we need to have here, is we need to have every citizen looking out for trafficking and knowing what they can do to report it or get involved with it or whatever. And this is where Tina tells me I'm always going to get in trouble. Look, I said this at CPAC. I'm not a politician. I don't have the luxury of being surrounded by negotiations and compromise and corruption. I'm just a war fighter that's been downrange for 34 years saving kids. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not a political issue. This is crimes against children. And I'm a very big believer, because my mom's family came from Scotland, and they were here in the 1700s fighting for this country. Their whole family grew up in a place called Georgetown, South Carolina, which is an old American Revolution town and everything. So, this is, my blood goes deep in the Constitution and stuff. And I am a huge believer that you do not underestimate the American people. I mean, and I believe that way before there's bureaucracy, that you need to look to the people and get their help and put them out there to work and do stuff. And that's what Mike Flynn and Mary Flynn O'Neill and those are talking about too, at the community level. That's the grassroots level, whatever. I'm a big believer in that, because I worked in bureaucracy, and you know what? It's bureaucracy. And that's why that's why NGOs out here can move much faster most of the time than bureaucracy, because there's so much red tape and there's so many hidden agendas, and there's always somebody in leadership that's a bad person that will stop an operation or a mission. I have a picture, and I briefly mentioned this. I have a picture of Nancy Pelosi with a cartel member that was given to me by a retired 3-letter agency person. It wasn't classified or anything like that, but Obama stopped it. And Biden stopped it. So nobody would know about it. Well, guess what? Last week, They're not stopping it now, buddy, because I put it on a podcast, and we're going to keep doing it because I want all the players to know that there are people up there that need to be held accountable for that. That comes from we, the people. Like, what are you going to do to me? Send me back to Afghanistan? Torture me in a jail? I've had that happen, So it's like we have got to be brave, and we've got to stand up as the people of this country and say enough is enough. And by God's good graces, we got a president in there now that is doing that, and I have no reason to believe that he's not doing that. We got Mike Flynn. We got a small circle of patriots in there that are doing a great job. Tulsi, Christie, Mike, Tom Holman. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And much like Cathy said, this is a time for us. This really is. And while the iron's hot, we have to strike hard. But let me end with this. No matter what happens in the next 3 years, if we come up short, continue the fight. Continue the fight until God takes your last breath from you on this earth, because every child counts. The hardest thing I had to hear came from a good friend of ours who has Hookers for Jesus, and Annie Lober. And Annie, when we met her, she told me when she was trafficked, and she said, I wish you had been around when I was being trafficked. She goes, where were you? No, that's what she said. She asked me very kindly, she goes, where were you when I was being trafficked? And it broke my heart. And every child out there is asking us the same question. She's asking Mark, she's asking Cathy, she's asking Tina, myself, Mary Flynn O'Neill, General Flynn, 47. Where are you now that I'm being trafficked? Where are you? And so what's our answer to them? The answer should be, we're on our way, we're coming, and we're going to get every single one of you that we can find.
Now, people have to get involved. They just have to get involved in whatever way, shape, manner, or form they can. They have to get involved. And by the way, Cash and Dan, if you are listening, call me. But, I know you know the number. So besides that, Cathy, we all know, and we've discussed, and you brought it up many times, about how with you, with Lynn, with most of the guests that I've had on who have been trafficked and dealt with trafficking began in the home. Now we're all talking back in the 50s and 60s, how prevalent in this country is it in homes now, especially considering the fact that we've been pushed to the point where you can never have two parents at home.
I think it's extremely prevalent, and I think it is because we've been conditioned for so many generations to accept it and not understand the effect that it has on the human brain. When that information was repressed under national security and kept from mental health, the medical community, the education system, and society as a whole, we forgot what happens in the brain of a child, how it shuts down those neuron pathways, dumbs them down, makes them compliant and robotic, removes them from their ability to live their life's purpose, to gather the strength of the human spirit. And it, in so many ways, it's a spiritual battle in that regard. It's horrific what is done, but people forgot. They don't understand that. Think, oh, this is about a sexual preference. No, it's not. It's about control. It's about torture. It's about rape. It's about control. And families don't even really know that anymore. They've been conditioned for generations. When we brought the Nazi and fascist scientists in, Disney was associated with that. Disney, what does Disney have to do with rocket scientists and NASA? Mind control. MK Ultra, mind control, targeting the children. So right from the get-go, as soon as those Disney cartoons started, they put the subliminals in to manipulate the minds of the masses to accept pedophilia subconsciously. Now, when our conscious mind filter is not in place and it's going into our subconscious, it just takes information in without any question or any reason. And then that information drives our thoughts and ultimately our actions going forward. The plan was to use that monarch generational, 3 generations aspect, slowly condition people to accept this pedophile mind control agenda. And after 3 generations, it's just more accepted. That's why it's to the point that it's at, that there's not more parents jumping up and down and outraged over what's going on. And that makes me wonder how many of them are contributing to this problem. You know, it's absolutely horrific how prevalent it is in homes and how it was in my childhood. When I was born into it, my father had been sexually and ritually abused. My mother was sexually abused and trafficked to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge, where, you know, the secrets on mind control and everything else are kept. And they were sexually abusing me from infancy before I could know what was happening was wrong. But my brain knew, because this is our brain's natural defense mechanism. It's the mind's sane defense to trauma, too horrible to comprehend. It's our birthright defense against trauma. It shuts down the neuron pathways around that trauma, represses it deep in the subconscious, so the rest of the mind can develop and function normally. It's important to understand that the brain does this without our knowledge. I didn't know it was wrong, but my brain knew. It's the way we're made. We have been told for so long how imperfect our bodies and everything are. Look at how many injections they're giving babies, you know, and everything else, and all this imperfection. We are more perfect than we know. We have forgotten how perfect we are. We have so much capacity and resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. We have so much ability in our own brains that we have forgotten about, that we need to remember. And that's the crucial information that Mark Phillips had found had been our birthright information buried under national security. Since he was working the highest levels of intelligence, mind sciences, to preserve the sanctity of free thought, he could not release that information, but he could do something about it, just like we all can. When we see crimes against humanity happen, we see crimes against children, it's up to us to take action wherever we are and start standing up against this. But Mark had seen where that pertinent information was buried, and he took action all the way back in 1988, before people knew there was a swamp, before they knew that our children were being sexualized. He took action, and he rescued my daughter and me right out of the Washington, D.C. human trafficking swamp. I had been at an MK Ultra mind control, torturous, robotic White House Pentagon level for 30 years. And I had lost my ability to even think, to know that there are good people in this world. I didn't know that I could be safe. I didn't know I could trust anyone. But just like that infant brain of mine knew that the trauma was occurring in repressed memory, my brain knew I was safe, because we have been made so perfect. My brain knew I was safe for the first time, that my daughter was safe, and those neuron pathways started opening and memory started leaking. And that's when Mark handed me our birthright information, the knowledge that's our defense against mind control, and empowered me to reclaim my free thought, free will, soul expression. And I realized what happens to us in life is not who we are. Who we are is within, divinely protected all along, just waiting for us to reclaim it. So that is, we have such an amazing ability to heal, but we have to remember to do that. And that requires a safe environment. The safe environment happens when people understand. That safe environment happens when people like Tina and Baz go in and help these children, and these children can know that there was a time in their life when they were safe, when they were happy. What was their happy memory? I mean, that's just such a brilliant way of putting it. But more importantly, they're already feeling the vibe. They're already collecting these extra senses. They're already knowing that they're in a safe space, that these people genuinely care, that they have that strength of the human spirit behind them. They have that that divine purpose right there. That's recognized by children because they're so innocent. They're the closest to the divine anyway. They recognize that and they know that they're safe. The brain knows that they're safe. So, we have so much to rediscover about our own mind brain function. We have so much to celebrate and reclaim it in this process. But in this process where we are right now, it's important to know that each and every one of us, when we have pure intent, we can make all the difference in the world for these trafficked children just by being the love that we are, just by living the love that we are and giving them a sense of safety for the first time in their lives because somebody sees and somebody cares. We have a wonderful opportunity, everybody, everywhere, no matter what walk of life they're in. We're all in a position to make that difference. And what Tina and Baz provide on the details of information empowers us all to be effective in cleaning up this mess once and for all and stopping it as we evolve with the knowledge that's our defense against mind control, that's our defense against this attack on our humanity. We have a victory forever going forward. It's such an amazing time to be alive. It's such an amazing time to be part of this movement because more and more people are coming forward every day. They have cause to need to know what they can do. They've either been affected by a corrupt system themselves, they've been exposed to injustice, they've experienced indoctrination in a school system, they may have been subjected to ritualistic abuse in a occult setting, but it's been so pervasive for so long that a lot of people are waking up and needing answers. And how amazing that we have the victory within us all, and it's time for us to unite and empower that victory once and for all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to try this again, and let's see if we can do this now. Here we go. I wanted to put this forward, and Baz and Tina, if you could, talk a little bit more about this and in general, give people an idea about ARC, about what they can possibly do and what the courses involve.
Yes, so I'll give a rundown on basically who the courses are for. I would just say it's any individual, like it says here on the site, organizations, agencies, law enforcement, government, any entities pursuing direct impact against trafficking through prevention, intervention, hunting bad guys, legislation, getting into the schools, getting into the communities. One of the things I do is I train nursing schools because a lot of these victims are winding up in the hospital or in urgent care or in emergency rooms, and the signs are being missed. So you can also, we talk about street evangelism or even doing strip club outreach. These are super effective because you can be out there on the prostitution tracks where people are out in the motels, in the hotels, and you can be serving as a chaplain or a church church lady, and have the opportunity to talk directly with trafficked victims and use that opportunity to help set their belief system right so that they engage with their true self. And they realize that the life that they're living, they don't have to live, and they can choose a different life, and they can be who they want to be. We also teach about how to find the aftercare programs. So if you're a lot of aftercare programs do come to get trained at our course, because one of the things we do is we break down the mental handcuffs, which is what, and Cathy's actually going to be teaching at our courses, which is great. But we talk about how a kid can develop vulnerabilities, how those vulnerabilities are exploited, the whole process of dehumanizing somebody, of isolating them from their support system, from good people in their life, how to get to them to basically not believe in themselves anymore. The goal of the trafficker is to have a body with no soul, with no mind. It's called just total dehumanization. This is what they were doing with Cathy. You have a body that you can do anything, that will do anything you tell it to, but it has no soul. And you can see the kids that I rescued early on, I saw the blank, right? There's nobody home, and that's not normal. Somebody's been broken. So that's who the course is for. We do have a tech department. Our technology department comes and does a training on how we use tools in the marketplace online to do cyber investigation, right? And then Boz teaches on undercover operations and surveillance operations, how to set up a successful operation. But I think some of the key part of the course that I teach is the victimology. We do deconstruct trauma, and like Cathy said, trauma is the key to shattering the mind. It's what they're using to get the mind to not function properly. What they're doing is exploiting the body's natural defense mechanism. So God designed us with natural defense mechanisms. When we experience trauma, we're going to compartment it, we're going to override, and they're exploiting the body's natural defenses to create a program to make that person repeat the same behavior, the same responses. So what we do on day 4 is we break down what are the ingredients of trauma so you can see it happening. Because like Cathy says, if you can break one of those ingredients of trauma, it won't work on you. And so we teach that. I think that's like, it's such a cool thing to know how to make sure you don't get exploited and nobody takes control of you, because you identify the tactic when it's coming at you. And that's why getting into school is so important for this. Boz, do you want to talk about the operations and the day 6? We talk about how to train people in how to run a rescue operation, and we actually test them on how their skills are.
Yeah, a lot of it because we sign NDAs, because we teach tradecraft. We don't want the bad guys to know what we do. So we won't be able to talk about that. But basically, at the end of on Saturdays, there's accumulation of everything they've learned. And we give them a scenario and say, here, go save this kid. And if it's a class of 70 people, we'll break them up, 9 to a table, whatever it may be, something like that. And we give them the next 6 or 7 hours to put their operations order together. We teach them how to do an operations order. And then they actually go before the entire class and show us and tell us how they actually either rescued the kid or miserably failed and did not. But it's a learning environment, which is very friendly. It's not one of criticism at all. And at the end, I think what people gain out of all of that is an experience to go save a kid, because every single course we've taught, within 2 weeks, we're getting calls back from people going, we just rescued 2 kids. We just rescued 3 kids. Thank you so much. It's like, wow, it really works. It's like, yeah, it really works. If you just stay in the lane, it really works. And then sometimes, and we tell our bad side, the mistakes we've made and the good things we've done, because there's always human error with stuff. And we help people. We coach them out there when they run their operations as well. We help pick them up off the ground when they fail, as well, with good guidance and sometimes direct support. And at the end of all of this, I think one of the great things that people learn is to ask themselves one question. And this is the most important question. No matter what you decide you want to do, no matter how you want to be a part of this, no matter who brings something to you that says this is the next great widget that will help save kids, just always ask yourself, how will this help me save a child? And if it doesn't help you save a child, you don't need it. I'm telling you that right now. If somebody could offer me, and I've done this before, somebody has offered us money before, and I've said, okay, well, how does this help me save a child? Now you say, well, that's easy. You can go towards an operation. But there was always some stipulation with the money or something like that, because we received donations, or somebody tried to sell us some new technology, and I would ask them, I'd say, okay. And they would go like for an hour and explain how it works. And it's bells and whistles. And I would finally say, okay, well, now tell me how that saves a kid. And they couldn't. So guess what? We didn't invest in it. So at the end of the day, for us, whether we eat, sleep, rest, or whatever, we're always asking ourselves, everything we do in life, how does this help us save a kid? And Cathy referred to it. You got to take care of yourself, your mind, your body, spirit. That helps you save a kid. You've got to associate with the right people. That will help you save a kid. You've got to have the right people in the community that are all on board to go save children. That will help you save a kid. All the other things that sometimes we feel are important that we waste our energy on. For us, at least, it doesn't help us save a kid. We have a lot of people that come to the court before they come to the course will call us up and say, hey, I want to get involved in this. What can I do? And I tell everybody the same thing. Look, you know yourself better than we do. Come and understand the area of operation, and you will know where you'll fit in, what you can do and what you can't do. And to be very, very honest, there are people that come and they get involved and they're involved the rest of your life. Because I'll tell you what, it only takes saving a child one time and your whole life changes. And then there are other people that come and guess what? They can't do it. The demand is too much. They thought it was this one thing and they realized it's big. It's big. And they don't have the dedication. Now, I don't fault them because look, the mom that has 3 children and she's working 2 jobs and she comes there and she wants to know about it. I don't expect her to get out there and do anything but just protect her 3 kids.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to fault her for not getting in the trenches. In fact, I would encourage her not to. I'd say take care of your 3 kids, and when they're all in college, then come back to the ball field. That kind of thing. But these are the things we leave people when they leave the course. They are totally prepared, outside of the fact of experiencing a rescue in real life. They're actually prepared to go out there and do it. One thing we do with the military, and we all know this, we didn't send troops to Afghanistan without teaching them about Afghanistan, without getting people, 10th Mountain, whoever it may be, that went into high altitude environments, the mountains to train there. Our troops trained in the mountains, okay? We don't send people to a jungle environment without sending them to, in the old days, it was Fort Gulick in Panama, to go through jungle survival school and all that sort of stuff. So why should we expect Americans to go out on the battlefield and not train them properly? Why should we do that? That we'll what? Just to say we're training people just to look good? It kind of reminds me during the Biden administration, and other times when you would hear about money being thrown out to NGOs and stuff, but there was no oversight. So the money just went out there and went in people's pockets. Did we save any kids? No. Did we lose a lot of money? Yeah, we did. Did we do any good with it? No. They just made us think that the government was doing something about it. And that's the way it always is. It's always that way. Well, we're gonna throw out $400 million to anti-trafficking NGOs, and everybody goes, "Oh my gosh, something's being done about it." But most of the time, it's not. It's not being done. We have the ability at ARC to go behind the veil simply because of our background, our strategic partners, and we know what people are doing. And I'll say it to everybody that's listening here, including government. If you don't think we can look in your sock drawer, you are sadly mistaken, because we can. And it's the battles we have to pick that preclude us from most of the time doing anything about it, because we have to rescue kids. So that's our battle that we pick. But let me tell you what, there are probably close to 65% of the NGOs out there that take government money that say they're doing things and they're not. They'll say, we got 40 beds when they have 4 beds. We've got people saying, we rescued 4,000 children this year. You know what? I've been doing this 34 years. Sometimes it takes us a whole month and a half to go locate one kid, get him from the perpetrator, and get him back. I have yet to walk into a warehouse and discover 50 kids. I'd like to, but yet. So when somebody tells me that their organization is made up of 25 people and they rescued 4,000 kids, I ask this question: where did you put them after you rescued them? Okay, where are they? Can you show me that? Could you show me the operations order? Could you show me that? Is there anybody that can speak to this? But what they do is they make these big claims They tug on the hearts of a lot of Americans. They get, these huge board of directors that have, they carry a card someplace and they make money off of the American people. Do your homework, vet people, vet organizations. I'm going to tell you right now, we only literally work with about 7 child rescue NGOs in the United States because they do what they say they do. And we vetted them over the course of the last 15 or 20 years. When it comes to aftercare, our go-to person is Christy Wells with the Safe House Project because she actually runs oversight on aftercare facilities, which was not being done in the United States, so that we know that when we rescue a kid, that kid's going to go to the right place. It's not going to CPS, I'll tell you that right now. That's got to be cleaned up. CPS is autonomous. They don't answer to anybody. And there's trafficking out of CPS, and we have investigations and files over the years that we know that's the case. So that's got to be cleaned up. And that's one of the things I think if Mary had been on here, she would have been talking about that, how we're trying to build out good, strong, faith-based aftercare places with good oversight that isn't making the mistakes that CPS did after all these years, so that we know our children are going to be safe that get taken there. That's really important. So these are also things, Mark, that we teach at the course as well.
Well, these are some of the really, really, really important aspects of it. And you just brought up one extremely important aspect in regard to where do these kids go? Now, this is where I started back in the beginning. You've literally brought it full circle. When we first started this topic, the uplifting side of it, where we spoke about building a children's ranch for these rescued children and rehabilitating them and giving them a safe haven. This is part of the reason that we're doing this tonight, because even though it still takes time to get the land, to procure the land, to prep the land, to put the structure up, and to get the right people in, the key is we have to get the right people in. Because originally, I thought that what they were planning on doing with ARC was kind of putting the cart before the horse. But there are so many places that ARC can be utilized prior to having these safe havens, because you deal with the people who do have the safe havens. So now with everything that the government's been doing, everything that DOJ has done, all the reveals that they've done, everything that we know they're trying to do in regard to child trafficking and in regard to defunding a lot of the government organizations that have literally just sold us and sold our children down the river. What do you feel, Mary? I'm sorry, Cathy. Mary didn't show up. What do you feel, Cathy, in regard to the future and the direction of this to try and put forth as we get into the quote unquote Great Awakening and move forward with this, to be able to have these facilities set up, safe haven for kids, and rehabilitate these kids with the properly trained people and meeting their needs and creating literally a new world for them.
It's all about people helping people. And it's up to us, each and every one of us, to dare to care and start making that difference. But we need to be effective when we take that step. And that's why the ARC training is so very, very important, so that we can be effective in making that difference. We need to do it now for the children's sake. These children need a safe place. They need people who are equipped to take care of them now. Because this system is so corrupt, it's going to take way too long for it to clean up, and the children can't wait. This system's been corrupt for a long time. I watched the roots of corruption planted in the Child Protective Services, the connection into the FBI and the 800 numbers and everything else, how it was set up as a catch net operation for child sex trafficking and human trafficking to be able to thrust them back into the system. And it was just a matter of working within the corruption to fund a globalist agenda. I saw it being set up, and then my own daughter was thrust back into it. As soon as she was safe and out of MK Ultra mind control, she was thrust right into the corrupt system. They medically kidnapped her by right out of the hospital, because they can just there's no oversight. They can do anything they want. They can take any child they want for any reason, and the national security can cover up the case as it has for my own child, which is what compelled me to speak out, was love for her. That's what got me started. But I have seen how deep this corruption goes. I've felt how deep this corruption goes. And I see so many other families who have experienced that. We have got to get smarter than that. We've got to wise up. We've got to have people helping people. We need to unite in light of truth and arm ourselves with effective methods for helping these children. They need us to do it now. And this is our opportunity right here, right now. And I'm so excited to be part of it. I'm so proud and honored to be part of this, to be able to start making the necessary changes, because the system's just way too corrupt.
Amen to that. Amen to that. How about you guys? Future.
The future of aftercare, specifically for recovery. We need to do a lot better job. I can tell you where I think the vacancies are, because the hard part for us is the emergency safe house. So there are programs out there that are good at the 2-year, the long-term recovery. But when you have a victim who is fresh out of a lifetime of abuse, and Cathy, I know you can imagine this. So sometimes we're the first friendly, good people that they have spoken to. They attach, because we're a safe person. And so they don't know there are other safe people. And the really hard thing is to say, we're going to take you to a home where these people, you can trust them, and this is so hard. But most of these long-term aftercares won't take a kid that's fresh out of, we don't know what their situation is. They need evaluation. They need medical evaluation, mental health, like education, all these things. Like, we don't know what needs this kid has. And so they need to go somewhere to have all that evaluation take place. And that is a hard part. So I worked with organizations that are no longer operating, who had a 14-day, a 30-day, a 60-day, basically a safe place they can go, so we can figure out what to do. And Cathy, you can imagine, like, they don't know what they need. They don't even know what reality is. So to go put a kid in a program and fill out an intake form for what they need, we're not there yet. So this emergency safe houses for kids to go for the first 2 weeks to 60 days, that is really, it is really hard to find that. A program's not going to take a kid where you're like, I don't know what they really need. They want to know what their medical, those are the questions that all need to be evaluated. And I would say the emergency care for trafficked juveniles is almost impossible to find.
Yeah, there's a blueprint being built out. So because it's being built out based on all the mistakes we've seen in the past. And it's a really good blueprint. It's called Project Exodus, and America's Future with Mary Flynn O'Neill, and a number of other members of the advisory committee and stuff. A coalition of really great people in the trenches are putting that together. And it should be the future of what we do in this country. Outside of bureaucracy, outside of government, to be honest with you. It's a great program. So I would encourage people to inquire about that. and push forward on that type of program or that type of project. To be honest with you, it's one of the best. We're part of that. Cathy, you may be a part of that as well. I'm not sure who all the players are right now. It's, as I said, it's a culmination of all the right people and all the right people that are in the trenches. And the way it's being built out, it has tremendous oversight and accountability and transparency. This is something you don't get with government because there's always a law, there's always a rule, there's always something that says, well, no, you're not allowed to see this. Well, why am I? Why am I not? And I think that we would be far more effective in our country if there were more projects like that. Christy Nome said something at CPAC was really interesting. And I don't know her personally. I just know she helped us relocate somebody into her state that was under the threat of death. And she did a brilliant job with it and gave that traffic victim refuge and witness protection status and everything. But she said, if every church in America would just take one child, we wouldn't have this problem at all. We wouldn't be looking for aftercare. But then again, those churches would have to be trained up as well. But I thought about that and I was like, wow, you know what? She's very solution oriented, and that's a pretty good solution. Now, will we ever get there? I don't know. But right now, in the meantime, like you're talking about, Mark, the Children's Ranch, I think Peace of Heaven out in Yuba City is working on something like that. I just sent Mary to Boulder Creek up in another state to look at they've already had an existing boys camp there. That's a facility that could just be turned over. It meets all the requirements of housing trafficked children. So there are a lot of places. There are a lot of, and those people, by the way, up there stepped up to the plate. They said, God wants us to do something with this. So we want to use it for this. And I imagine there are other places out there that could be as well. But as I said, anything we do to not only rescue children, but to protect them is critical. And I think for the first time in my life in 34 years with dealing with this, I'm now associating with people that are solid. Now, here's why they're solid. They're solid because they know nobody is going to tolerate anything from each other when it comes to corruption. Not at all. I mean, not at all. And so everybody is keeping an eye on everybody. And these are good patriots, good God-fearing people. And we've seen the damage done to children that fall into the bureaucratic slush and are used every day for somebody else's agenda. And so what I am seeing, which is great, despite what the left, whatever the left is these days, may think, I like patriots because they love the country and they love God. I'm talking about solid patriots, and good solid patriots keep an eye on other patriots, and they're willing to defend the country and everything that's in the country. So I think that could very well be a good future for this issue in our country, things like that.
Excellent. Excellent words, excellent advice. Now, I just want to address at the end here, for those of you who've been watching Respect all along and faithfully doing so, you all know that I don't advertise anything. I don't even ask you guys to hit the thumbs up button during the shows. Mods may put it up every so often. I really don't ask for anything. I do this to try and bring information and help the people through this. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm asking you, when you say, what can we do to help? This is what you can do to help. Whatever you got, whatever you can manage. I know a lot of people are hurting out there. But whatever you can manage to donate to this cause will get people trained and allow them to rescue and rehabilitate these children. And there's nothing more important than that. This is why we're here. This is why I keep doing these shows. This is why it's so important that it stay right here and right here. Because, see, even the dog agrees. We have to save the children. And in order to save the children, you can't just get them and throw them into the hodgepodge of the government as we did before. We have to have safe havens for them, and we have to have trained people to manage them. So let's do what we can. I'm not going to do a Jerry Lewis and sing a song for you, put on a tuxedo, but let's go and dig in. Usually have a lot of people who watch this show during the course of a week. Even if you all put in $1, it trains a lot of people. So I really appreciate Cathy always having you on. Great to have you here. And Baz and Tina, what you people are doing is just tremendous. It's what this country needs, because it does come down to us. The military is doing their job. The new government is doing what they can do to take down the old government and make things better. But we have to do our part. And our part is working together, and our number one priority is saving these children. And I also want to thank all the people who helped tonight, besides the normal cast of characters, where we have our wonderful Claudia, Kat, Carrie, Doug, without whom we wouldn't be here. But especially for tonight, where we had a number of people simulcasting this broadcast strictly so that we could get as many people as possible to contribute. So I want to thank Louis Herms from Screw Big Gov, and I want to thank Joe and Scott from over at TruthStream. And we've also got Bishop Jim O'Connor and Thomas Bogan from the Vibe Tribe and Tribe One now, Friends of Tribe One. And I know I'm leaving some people out, but I really do appreciate everybody realizing how important this topic is and how important it is for us to move forward and help to get people trained and help to get these kids rescued. Again, thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Baz and Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very informative show. And I'm really happy that we could do this. Not happy, but I'm happy that we could do this.
Thank you so much.
Everybody. Everybody, will see you next week. And please dig into your pockets. Do whatever you can. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.